to worry about upgrades and patches. We take care of that for you. And then finally, it's really important that you think about the comprehensive SLA, because at the end of the day, if you're going to take a bet on a cloud platform, you want to make sure that the provider is backing up their service. And ultimately, we don't charge anything extra for service management. This is included in the base prices that I showed you earlier. So that's a huge advantage and a great value that we don't expect customers to pay extra for, because we think it should just be part of the platform. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and bring Rick Weinberg up from 3M. Rick's going to talk to you about truly about agility and deployment, and about how they took an idea that came out of research, and once they decided that they had a commercial opportunity, how it is that they were able to bring that to market in a very quick way. Come on up, Rick.
Thank you. So my name is Rick Weinberg, and I work for a corporate research lab actually within 3M. Traditionally, when you hear the name 3M, you probably think of Post-it notes or duct tape or some of the other products that we have. But believe it or not, 3M actually has made a significant, significant investment in the last couple of years in software. So being in a corporate research lab, a lot of what we do is a lot of tinkering. We're looking for the next great thing that we can bring to market and sell a whole bunch of 3M products with. So about a year ago, some very, very, very bright vision scientists came to the software group and said, we've done this really cool thing where we can predict where people are going to look in a given scene. And we went, oh, okay, well, that doesn't sound that revolutionary. That sounds like eye tracking. And they said, yeah, but we've developed the algorithms and software so that we can do it automatically. And then we went, oh, okay, that sounds really cool. But they said, here's the catch. Anytime somebody comes up with a great idea like this, you can bet that within approximately 6 months, somebody else is going to have that same idea. So for us, time to market was absolutely critical. We needed to get to market extremely fast because we wanted to get out there, we wanted to grab market share and kind of define the landscape. So we went through that process, we talked to them about that. And then the next thing is we really needed the agility. So, okay, so we asked them, we said, okay, so how many customers do you think you're going to have? Well, we're not sure. Okay. How scalable do you think the solution needs to be? Well, we're not really sure. Okay. So we had all these unknowns. And so we're looking at it going, okay, so here's, given what we don't know, our cost for a data center to support this application that may or may not be successful, depending on market conditions and how well it's accepted, is going to be extremely expensive, because obviously you have to build in failover and fault tolerance and have a disaster recovery strategy and do all these different things. And we looked at the economic realities of the situation and the time to market requirements, and we said, okay, we need to be on the cloud. It's just that simple. The question is, which cloud provider is going to actually service us in a way that we absolutely need it to be done? So we looked at a bunch of different services. We looked at a lot of the competing products. We looked at Amazon. We looked at the Google API. We looked at Salesforce.com. We looked at VMware's vSphere solution. We looked at all those solutions, but there was kind of a common theme with all those other solutions in that you still had to deploy your VM, you had to configure it, you had to install things that weren't installed like IIS, you had to actually go out and install SQL Server. So there's still a lot of administrative overhead in that respect. You're also going out and you're installing service packs and hotfixes and doing a bunch of those things as well. And frankly, we didn't have the resources to do that. You know, our IT, just like everybody else's IT departments today, are asked to do a lot more with a lot less. So what we didn't want to do is we didn't want to overburden the IT department with yet another application that they had to go babysit. So we looked at the Azure platform and said, that's what we want. We want a hands-off approach. We want them to manage the infrastructure. We want them to manage the failover, the clustering, the fault tolerance capabilities. We want them to help us, you know, with the elasticity, since we don't know what we need. And that essentially became a no-brainer for us. That was just a slam dunk decision. We're going to go with Azure. I actually like to use the metaphor, or use the analogy of leasing a car. When I explain this technology in-house, I tell people, you know, being in the cloud is kind of like leasing a car, okay? Except you get So, you know, somebody else owns it, somebody else kind of, in some cases, maintains it. But the better part, even better, is that you only pay for it when you're driving it. And oh, by the way, if your car breaks down, they're going to heli-drop another car into your current location within about 2 minutes. So that kind of makes it a lot more attractive than having to do this on-premise deployment within the data center. And so we've been working really hard with our IT department, because what we want them to do, like I said, they're overtaxed, overburdened, overworked. We want them to still try and be able to focus on the bigger problems, the bigger value-added problems within the organization. We don't necessarily want them to just have to sit and babysit a server. Okay, it can be time-consuming, it can be distracting. So we've taken that burden off their plate, and we've allowed them to focus on bigger things like making sure our email system is up and running, and they can do some more SharePoint type of deployments that are going to help our organization be more productive. So it's definitely a win-win in that respect. The last thing I'd like to talk to you about is deployment with the Service Management API. So we've got a really cool thing that we've done where, using traditional all Microsoft technologies, we set up a TFS build server. So our solution goes out, grabs the latest code, builds it, compiles it, tests it, makes sure everything works. But then we leverage the Azure Service Management API. And what we do there is we actually package our deployment. We dynamically create a configuration file associated with that deployment, depending on which environment it's going to. We'll go into our current Azure instance, we'll tear them down, we'll delete them, we'll deploy our new packages, we'll get them up and running, and then we're on our way again. And we do all of that without any human interaction. So again, we're allowing IT to really focus on the bigger problems instead of some of this kind of it's valuable, but they're in the grand scheme of things, there's probably some bigger, more important things that they can be doing. So that was kind of critical for us, and we're continuing to work with the IT department and helping them understand the benefits of the Azure platform and really show them that this is really freeing them up to do those things that they really want to be doing but can't because they've got these other constraints. So it's worked out very well with IT, and we actually, after this deployment now, we're looking at a couple more internal case studies where it looks like it's going to be very applicable to apply our technologies to the cloud. So we're going to be able to do it fast, we're going to be able to do it cheap, and we're going to be able to do it without overburdening our IT staff, which is, it's the trifecta as far as I'm concerned. So that's what we're doing at 3M today.
So Rick, I think when you and I were talking the other day, you said that you actually started the development in about November of last year.
Oh, yes.
So we're talking about roughly a 6-month development cycle.
Correct. So the beauty of it is because this is all integrated into TFS, there's not a big learning curve with the Azure SDK. We started our official development cycle started in October of 2009 with the goal of releasing on the first day of PDC. So a 6-week development cycle to get our product to market, which we were actually able to do without any problems, basically. So in terms of, having to go, there's no learning curve. Obviously, it's just an SDK to understand, but it's all within the TFS and Visual Studio frameset and framework, and really it makes our development lives a lot easier as developers as well.
How did the conversation with IT start out?
Well, it was interesting because we had an article in the New York Times, I believe it was, or one of the major newspapers, and 3MIT saw it and said...
It's a great way for them to find out,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So they said, we're doing Azure? Well, first of all, what is Azure, and what does this mean to us? So the conversation started that way. So we got basically a request to come in and talk to some of the bigwigs at 3M, and so we did a big overview, and we talked about total cost of ownership. We talked about elasticity. We talked about actually being able to not necessarily replace our data centers, but supplement them or augment them in certain cases. There's other cases where you may not necessarily just want to, you can keep your on-premise solution, but then augment that with additional instances in the cloud.
That's right.
And when they started to hear that, they got really excited because, again, we're not taking away their job. We're making it easier and allowing them to focus on the bigger value add kind of problem. So
right.
they enjoyed that aspect of it quite much.
Excellent. All right. Thanks a lot,
You're
Rick.
very welcome.
Appreciate it. I think that's the meta point. This isn't about cloud computing or Windows Azure somehow taking over the world and becoming the only way that deployments are done. I think the reality is that it's going to be a continuum. There's going to be some things that most appropriately should stay where they are on premise. But in terms of being able to have the choice of being able to deploy when and where you want to, I think that's what makes it so powerful for the IT professional to have as an opportunity. So let's talk about our promotional offers and programs. The first one I want to talk to you about is what we call our introductory special offer. It's available now through October 31st. This gives a small amount of Windows Azure resources for somebody to be able to get on and try it on a monthly basis. So there's a free allotment. A word of caution, it isn't enough to be able to run a website or a service on a 24/7 basis. It really is intended to be able to go out and dabble in it a little bit, but nonetheless, it still gives you an opportunity to really understand how the platform works. If you're an MSDN Premium subscriber, you can actually sign up for the MSDN Premium Windows Azure offer. It provides a much more substantial allocation of compute and storage and SQL Azure resources for you to be able to do more extensive development of a service. We also have, I don't know how many of you might have heard of BizSpark, but it's basically our program to support startups because they are, after all, the engine of the economy. And we have an opportunity for some of the more promising startups where we'll pay for a much more, or we'll cover a much more substantial amount of Windows Azure resources for those startups to really get up and going and be successful. So those are our promotional offers in terms of what we provide at no charge. We also have what we call development accelerator offers. These are accelerators, or these are offers to basically help people sort of overcome their lack of certainty around what something's going to cost. It provides a fixed amount of resources for a heavily discounted price. So for example, the core development accelerator package includes 750 compute hours a month, 10 gigabytes of storage, and some App Fabric and Service Bus, App Fabric access control and Service Bus, excuse me, as well as some bandwidth, all for just roughly $60 a month. Now, the nice thing about it is that it's this sort of unit of consumption. And so if you have a bigger deployment, then you can just buy more of it, right? So if you need 10, then you buy 10 of them. Now, it's important to note it is a commitment, so it's a 6-month commitment window, and it means that the $60 will be charged each month, whether you use the resources or not. But in return for that, it's a heavily, heavily discounted offer. We also have just announced a SQL Azure specific development accelerator offer. And actually, I'm going to talk about that second. I'm going to go ahead and skip over to the extended offer. So the difference between the core and the extended offer is that it has all the extended offer has all the same elements of the core, except that we also add in a SQL Azure Business Edition database. Okay? But one of the key pieces of feedback, so I told you there's this, this unit of consumption. So it means that if you wanted to go ahead and add another SQL Azure Business Edition database, that you would actually need to buy more compute, even if you didn't need to use it. So based on customer feedback, we've now created a new offer where somebody can just commit to Business Edition databases for SQL Azure. So we just announced that, and that will actually be available for purchase on the 1st of August. When we first announced the Development Accelerator offers, they were intended to be available through the 31st of July, and we've actually extended the availability of those offers through the end of October.